Welcome to High End Homes Handled Right. This is the real property management luxury podcast hosted by Lindell Johnson. You know, as part of the eviction series, we talked about what an eviction is, the process. We also talked to tenants about what an eviction is and, you know, how to try to prevent it. Today, we're going to go a little bit beyond eviction and how to master screening and how to really find that long-term renter who is going to just be a quality renter, and it's going to be less stress for you and give you a peace of mind that, you know, everything's taken care of and rent is coming in. I get a lot of questions about what do you do for evictions? If I, hire you to manage my property, how do you prevent it from happening? And the answer to that question is you can never fully prevent an eviction from happening. You can't. You'll never really be able to. But what you can do is you can minimize that risk. And to minimize that risk is really how well you screen and what you let go through. And here are some steps that we do that helps us be successful here. So yes, there is a lot of software that can help with checking your credit score, which obviously you should do. Before you even talk about that, you should have a bar of how high the credit score should be, or the minimum, the bar of credit score that you'll accept. Next, you should have how much should the renter earn every month. And this is money that in comparison to the rent amount. You don't want your renter to go in there and, you don't want to prove someone that, yes, they make enough to pay the rent, but the car breaks down and they are no longer able to pay rent. And life happens, and that does happen, and that can begin the eviction process. They're not able to pay rent, and it just snowballs. So, yes, you also want to make sure that they do have, a steady pay. One way to look at that is maybe you can look at their bank statements. You could request bank statements. When you're looking at that bank statement, you're looking to see the amount of money that goes in and what's going out, and are they living paycheck to paycheck? You can see that off the bank statement. And then you also want to look at their pay stubs. Make sure, yes, they've been living, or should I say, they've been working at wherever they said they worked for a decent amount of time. If someone is applying for, your house, but it states that they're making great money, but they've only worked there for a week. Oh, that's pretty risky. You also want to spend that extra time to actually contact the resident or their previous landlord. Make sure they have actually paid on time, their rent on time. Make sure they've had no violations in regards to their lease. You also want to contact their employer, making sure that this person actually works there. This is something that a lot of property management companies don't do, and it's really biting them right now. It's really hitting them for it because, there's so many software that's out there and people are actually creating fake pay stubs. Don't get caught in that. Be savvy. And there are actually companies out there that you can upload pay stubs and they can actually screen it for you, and it'll let you know if it's real or not. And if you're going to spend that extra money for it, I would definitely recommend it, because you don't want to put someone in your house that, they pay to move in, but they don't pay for the rest of the time they're there. And then you have to evict them. They're destroying your property. You don't want any of that. So be strict on this front end, and make sure that everything that you put up there, the bar that you have set, that you're actually upholding those standards. Another thing that you can do, and this is something that we do here and other property management companies don't, is let's just say there are 3 applicants. You take all their data. Let's say you take their credit score and you put it on a spreadsheet. You take their their income that they're making every month. You put it on the spreadsheet on the row. You take their referrals. How many references do they have? Do they have good references? You put that on a spreadsheet, and everything is weighted. You can put a weight scale on their credit score. You put a weight scale on how much they're making. Put a weight scale on their references. Put a weight scale on how long they've lived. Put a credit in the previous residence. Put a weight scale on any open accounts that haven't been paid. And then once you do that, once you put all the data in from your 3 applicants, the best one that comes out, that's the winner. That's the one that gets it. And we do this because this allows us to not get too comfortable, one. But sometimes if you have someone working for you, if you're a property manager and you may have like a leasing agent, and sometimes they speak to these applicants and they get comfortable with the applicants and they start to like the applicant. By putting this on a spreadsheet, this is all data driven. It's not a relationship thing. You don't want your leasing agent or yourself, you're a homeowner and you saw there was a single lady who had 3 kids, and you feel bad for her, and you're like, oh, she has a good job, and I understand that her credit score is a little bit lower, but, she would be great in this house, and this elementary school is right down the block, and she would be great here. This is not personal. It's business. And that business is what's going to make sure that your mortgage is paid, and it's going to make sure that you get a return on your investment. You want to manage the asset, not manage a lease. I'll say it again. Manage the asset, not manage the lease. So you want to make sure that you get the most qualified person in and take your emotions out of it. And so that's why I like using the spreadsheet method. I like doing this because I want to actually look at data. So once my leasing agent gets 3 to 5 applicants and they put it on the spreadsheet, and these are applicants that looks like our software has approved to go through. Once they put it on the spreadsheet, I look at it and I then choose the applicant that's best. I then send a message to the homeowner and I state, dear homeowner, this is the person that I would choose. Do you agree? And this allows the homeowner to see the process. And, on that spreadsheet, they're not looking at names, they're not looking at race, they're not looking at any issues. They're just looking at straight numbers. That's all they're looking at. They're looking at numbers. They're looking at facts. They're not looking at sex, gender, anything like that. And then the homeowner will respond, yes, I agree. 9 times out of 10, that's what they'll say. They'll say, yes, I agree with your choice. And that helps you to make sure that you have a strong candidate that's going to pay on time, a strong candidate that will just be quality. Another thing that you should do is deposits. Make sure that you have a deposit that can actually help with rent if rent is not received on time. I like to say request 1.5 times the rent. It could be there could be something that happens where they move out, and yes, there are some damages, but they also skipped rent. So if you have some extra, you can use that for your rent. Insurance is another thing that you can do to help protect yourself. There are some insurance carriers that do help you if your renter has not paid their rent on time. So it does exist. Now, most insurance carriers this is an add-on. This is not something that automatically is given. This is going to be an add-on, something that you're going to have to pay extra for. But that does protect you as a homeowner in case this does happen to you. You also want to make sure that all your documents are set. Make sure that all your lease is accurate. Make sure your lease is, you've taken your lease and you've sent it to your attorney so your attorney can go through it. Make sure there's no loopholes in that lease. These are the things that will protect you in the long run. All right, so now you've got your lease, you've got your deposit, you've chosen a quality resident, a quality tenant. Now they've moved in. Maybe your insurance carrier has given you that add-on. You've purchased it, and now you feel safe. Now you can just relax in your backyard, in your main house, and you can sip on that pina colada or that nice cognac and just not worry about a thing. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. Being a homeowner or a property manager is a day-to-day thing. You can't just say they've moved in and you can't just back off. Communication is key. Once again, you want to make sure that the house is taken care of and to make sure that they're making payments on time. And I'll say it again, you are managing your asset. You're not managing that lease. So communication is key. And part of that communication is making sure that your renter knows the rules. They didn't just take that lease when they signed it and just put it in the kitchen drawer, never to be seen again. Make sure they understand your standards that you set forth in that lease. Make sure they know when to pay. Make sure they know how much to pay. Make sure they know when you're going to charge a late fee. Make sure they know the process of the eviction process and what day things are going to take place. Make sure you communicate well. The renter needs to be able to know these things, and they need to feel comfortable enough to talk to you if an issue comes up. The renter that you don't want is the renter that thinks the best thing for them to do is hide. You don't want a renter that says, oh my gosh, I need to hide. Almost like, have you ever been eating with your family and the doorbell, someone's ringing the doorbell and you're yelling at your kids, don't go. And it's probably somebody trying to sell like an alarm package or something like that, going door to door. And now you're hiding out in the side room, peeking through the blinds, acting like you're not there because you don't want to answer the door. That's how your renters are going to be, or some are, when they realize that they haven't paid rent and they don't have the money in their account to pay. A lot of them are going to do that. You may decide then to call or to send the emails, and they're going to ignore it and act like they're not there. So a problem that they don't face, they're going to act as if the problem doesn't exist. Build a relationship with that renter. If you're a homeowner and you really don't want to have that relationship, that's why it's good to have a property management company. So they can be that person that communicates with the renter, make sure the renter pays on time. But a relationship, and when I say relationship, this is a professional relationship where there's a rapport, where the renter knows if I have an issue, I can contact the property management company via phone, call, they'll answer, and I can express the issue. You want your renter to love where they live and to feel like they're heard, but you want them ultimately just to take care of their house like it's their own. You want them to actually pay on time. That's what you want. You don't want them to be your best friend where you guys go out and have drinks or anything like that. We're talking about a professional relationship where they're able to contact you and they're able to tell you when things are not going as planned. And once again, as I stated in the beginning of this, you could do an amazing job in your screening. You could. Your team could be the best screeners of all time, the best leasing team ever, and you can still have an eviction. And I'll tell you this, my company here in Texas, as of now, we haven't had an eviction here. I've been part of an eviction when I actually worked for a company, but as a business owner, we haven't had one. And I would say that's God. Really. It's because it's bound to happen eventually. It's bound to happen. But as long as we're prepared and we know the steps and we know we do our best to make sure it doesn't happen, then we'll be okay. So as a homeowner, once again, or a property management company, make sure you do all these steps that we talked about. Make sure everything that's in this lease you're abiding by, and make sure that the renter knows what's in it. Now, or let's say it's 90 days before the lease expires, and they have been amazing, or they've been late. Don't be afraid to not renew that lease. Don't be afraid to not renew that lease. So what we're getting to now is just, even though let's say they've been late several times, they've given that 3-day notice, but you never made it to the eviction. You've gotten so close, but they pay. On the 90th day, your property management company should be sending you, or should I say 90 days before the lease is over, your property management company should send you a message stating, hey, your tenant or your renter is the lease is about to expire. We need to know if you would like to renew this tenant. Don't feel desperate. Don't feel like you have to renew. At that point, your property management company should also have gone through and done a property evaluation. So you have some facts. You know what the property looks like. You know if they were taking care of it. And now you can look at not only how they've paid, but how your property looks like, what it looks like at this point in time, so that you make the right decision. But once again, we're talking about preventing an eviction. If your renter has been late several times, why put yourself through that again? Why go out there and send another 3-day notice, which costs money? Why go out there and have an issue where you go through the whole process before you make it to court, and then they pay? And you go through all that stress, because throughout that whole time, guess what? Guess who was late on their mortgage? You were. You were late. But how long does it take for you to get another renter in that property? So that is something you're going to have to weigh. What's worse? Going through all those steps and potentially have an eviction, or now you have to move the person out and you have to put somebody else in. And here's the money that you have to pay for that. Now, let's say you move someone out. You have to go through the property. You're going to do another evaluation. You're going to find out what's beyond normal wear and tear. And then you're going to have to do a make ready. That's getting the property ready to be placed on the market. Then so that costs money. Then you're going to spend money to get new photographs, unless you've got photos from before that you can use again. So you may not need that. But then you put it in the market. Suppose that renter left in November or October or December. These are times where it's very slow to lease. So your house could possibly be on the market for 2-3 months before you have someone there. So you're going to really have to weigh what's more important, or what's less of a risk. Keeping this resident here and potentially evict them later on, or putting the house on the market in search of a better applicant or a better resident, someone that's more qualified. So I can't tell you which one is better, but I could tell you that they both can have it could be risky, but on both ends. So you really have to weigh which one is less of a risk. Now, if your renter is moving out in, let's say, June or July, or at that point you can actually say you don't want to renew. Yeah, that's fine, because that's the peak season. If they've been late for a long time and almost getting to eviction, but it's summertime and their lease expires in June, personally, I would be more okay to do that than to renew them. But if it's in the wintertime, I may not be so comfortable to make that decision. but only you can really make that decision. But you need to know the steps and the process it takes to get another renter and to then see who's qualified. So make sure you get with your property management company if you're using one, and make sure, or if you're self-managing it, make sure you put everything on paper and you really figure out what this process looks like. Once again, you don't want that renter to get to an eviction, and what you want is quality. And I leave at this last sentence once again: manage your asset, don't manage your lease. This is High End Homes Handled Right, the Real Property Management Luxury Podcast.